Hello there guys, welcome to the first podcast for the channel. This will be a video focused on camera rumors. I'm going to go over the cameras which are rumored to be released this year and in the future. Like I said, this is a podcast type of video, so it's going to probably be a little bit long. It might drag out a little bit, but I will try not to make it too long. 2020 is going to be the year where I start doing some podcasts. This one in particular is going to be about camera gear, so you can expect more of these types of videos in the future again. So yeah, let's get on with the video then. So we're gonna go into the rumor sites, and I'm gonna give you the information and what I think about the rumors, and if I will or not upgrade my Nikon camera this year. So right here first we have the DSLRs, then we're gonna go over to the mirrorless. So we have the Nikon D70. This camera was officially announced recently. Overall, it seems to be a great DSLR actually. It's basically a DSLR camera, a DSLR Nikon camera with face detection autofocus, which is something that I've been asking of Nikon for quite a lot of time now. It's got pretty much the same specs as the D750, which is also a very great camera as well. It's full frame, of course, but it adds face detection to video, and this is very beneficial because Nikon cameras have always been known to be bad for video because of the autofocus in live view. Mine especially, I always have to put it in single point AF like I have it right now, because if I put it in continuous autofocus, it's gonna hunt all the time, it's gonna lose focus on my face, and it's pretty much terrible. So this camera finally fixes that. But I wish they would make a camera like this with face detection in the 5000 series, because the 5000 series are very compact, they're small, and they have the flip out screen, which is the best feature about those cameras. Like my one, for example, I have the flip out screen filming me right now, so I can see myself. And if they will release like a D5700 or something, pretty much a new 5000 series camera with a flip out screen and the face detection autofocus, it will sell like hotcakes, I'm telling you right now. If this camera, the D5500 had face detection autofocus, nobody will be buying Canon DSLRs, nobody. So yeah, but it's very nice that they finally are coming out with the camera with face detection autofocus. It's pretty much the D750 fused with the Z6 autofocus. So it's like a hybrid camera. It's not really a hybrid camera. It acts like a hybrid camera. So you have when the mirror is closed, it acts like a DSLR, and when it's open, it acts like a mirrorless. So it's pretty much a D750, but with the autofocus of the Z6. Unfortunately, it's very pricey. Unfortunately, it's over $2,000. So yeah, it's quite expensive. Yeah, it's $2,299. So in euros here in Portugal, it's going to be very expensive. Of course, I'm not going to be buying it, but it's just rocks that they finally figured it out and added face detection to a DSLR. So we'll have to wait and see how the autofocus is on this camera. Then we also have the Nikon D6. Of course, this is going to be their flagship. This is the flagship line of cameras from them. They have the D5, the most recent one, and here's the D6, which has not been officially announced yet. It's in development. These are some pictures from CES 2020. It looks pretty much like the D5. I don't really care for this camera, of course. I don't care for these types of cameras, because these types of cameras are meant to be for sports shooters and journalists and wildlife shooters as well. So they're not really meant for people like me who do event coverage, because they're very expensive and too overkill. The price, if it's priced like the D5 and the Canon equivalent, it's going to be over $6,000. So yeah, again, it's not really targeted to me and the type of people like me who do event coverage. The most beneficial things about these lines of cameras is the battery life. The battery life is huge. It's very ergonomic as well. It's very big, so it balances well with telephoto lenses and big lenses. So it's really meant for sports shooters and wildlife shooters, not really meant for event shooters. So I don't really care about this camera. One of the rumors is that it's gonna have IBIS built in. It's gonna have in-body image stabilization. That's gonna be a first for a Nikon camera. It's gonna be 20 megapixels, I think. They still haven't confirmed the megapixel count. But like I said, I don't really care about this camera. It's mostly just for the battery, and the autofocus is really good as well, I guess. It's most likely going to have face detection like the D70 has, so the video is going to be very good. It's going to have 4K 30 uncropped, I believe. It's also going to have 10-bit, I think. But yeah, it's going to be very pricey, and I don't really care. But it's just a camera that they're also going to release, I guess. It's in a DSLR model, of course. They are going to be releasing a mirrorless model in the future, but for the time being, this has been worked on for probably some years now, so it's going to be a DSLR. Now we have a much more intriguing camera. Actually, this is the Canon EOS 1D XMark III. This is pretty much the equivalent to the Nikon D series, but this camera, from the specs I have seen, it's very, very good. This camera is my god, it's amazing. At least in terms of the specs, that is. It's got 20 megapixels, so they have not improved the megapixel count from the previous 1D XMark II. It's got a new processor, which equates to better high ISO performance. The autofocus is pretty good. It's got a Canon's dual pixel autofocus, so it's gonna be very good for video. It also has pretty much unlimited burst shooting and capability for the photos. It uses CF Express card slots. It has a maximum buffer and continuous shooting raw plus JPEG of 1000 images or more. So you're never gonna run out of photos with this body. And the best thing about it really is the video specs. It's got 12-bit, not 10-bit, 12-bit 5.5K raw video internal recording, and it also has 4K 60p, and it also has 10-bit 422. All of this internal. It's up to 4K 30. It's gonna have autofocus, dual pixel autofocus, 4K 50 and 60, as well as raw video. It's not gonna have dual pixel, but it can have dual pixel autofocus in 4K 60, 50, or raw with a 1.3 times crop. Yes, it's cropped, but if you look at the Panasonic S1H, for example, which is a very video-centric camera from Panasonic, it's got 4K 60 with 1.5 times crop. So the Canon is actually better. It's actually wider. It doesn't crop as much as the Panasonic, and this is not even a video-centric camera. Just to remind you, this is a camera meant for photos mostly. So yeah, it's actually better than the Panasonic S1H. It also offers raw recording, which I don't think the Panasonic S1H offers. I might be wrong, and it does all this internally. So that's pretty good. This camera is very good, but of course it's going to be expensive. It's going to be like $6,500 or something. But for the intended market and even for video shooters, it's going to be a blast of a camera. It's pretty good from the specs. Meanwhile, you have Sony, which still records at 8-bit and not even offers 4K 60, and yet this camera offers raw 12-bit, 422, 10-bit internal, 4K 60 as well. It also has 20 frames per second shooting as well, just like the Sony A9. In mechanical shutter, it also in live view, should I say, in live view it offers 20 frames per second, and in the viewfinder it offers 18 or 16. I'm not really sure now, but yeah, it pretty much matches the Sony A9 and the A9 II, which by the way is a really bad camera, the A9 II. Sony really is compromising right now. Canon, meanwhile, is really improving with their cameras, so that's pretty good to see. So yeah, the Canon 1D XMark III, pretty awesome camera, but of course it's not really targeted for me. But it's still very impressive what Canon is doing with their flagship line. It just sucks that they don't focus, or should I say, they don't emphasize the specs as much in their smaller and cheaper cameras. But their flagship cameras, the 1DX series, are always pretty good. So that's good to see. Then we also have a rumored EOS R high resolution camera. Now this is going to be a mirrorless camera. It's going to be pretty much a 5DS and 5DSR replacement in mirrorless. The rumored specs are 75 megapixels. The sensor is going to be focused on dynamic range, so they're going to focus on getting better dynamic range, which is understandable because Canon cameras suck at dynamic range. It's gonna have a new Digic 9 processor. It's gonna have pretty much the same button layout as well, and same buttons. It's gonna have a larger and high resolution EVF compared to the EOS R, so that's good. They're probably gonna have the 5 million megapixel EVF like on the Panasonic's S series and the Sony A7R4. It's gonna have a fully articulating LCD screen, which is pretty good, of course, for video. It's gonna be fully water sealed, of course. And it's not gonna have the touch bar of the EOS R because they pretty much figured out that sucks, I guess. So yeah, this camera, again, not really meant for me. This is gonna be a camera for people who want the maximum image quality and resolution, and for landscapes, I guess, for landscape shooting as well. I don't really care for this camera. I'm more excited about the EOS R2 actually. The EOS R is pretty bad. The thing I like about the mirrorless Canon system, the RF mount, is the lenses. The lenses are pretty good. They have come out with amazing lenses which nobody else has, like the 15-35 f2.8 IS, the RF 70-200 as well, the 85-1.2, the 51-2. Their lenses are pretty good. The problem is that they're very expensive and pretty big and heavy. At least the better ones, of course, like the Holy Trinity lenses, the 2.8 zooms, the 1.2 primes. But they have said that they'll be coming out with cheaper 1.8 primes as well. So let's hope for that, because their 1.8 primes also rock. Like the 35-1.8, for example, that one is a 1.8 35 millimeters with image stabilization, and it also has 1.2 magnification for macro, so that's pretty good. It's the only lens like that on the market. So yeah, even though their cameras suck, the lenses are pretty good, and I think this is actually more beneficial for them, because Canon are known to have pretty awesome lenses, and them releasing the lenses first before the bodies can actually be beneficial, because that way professionals and people who want to get into the system will have the lenses already available when better cameras arrive, like the EOS R2 or the Pro mirrorless EOS R camera, which they are gonna be releasing this year or next year, I don't know. So that's pretty intelligent in their part to release the lenses first and then focus on the bodies. The Nikon had it the other way. They released the bodies first and then they focused on the lenses. But this way Canon can pursue people who want to invest in the system, because they offer lenses that nobody else offers. So yeah, the lenses are always going to be more beneficial to the camera bodies, because they're more future proof and they're less likely to be updated. So yeah, the EOS R high resolution camera, I don't care, but it's there. Now we're going to get into Macro Four Thirds territory. So we have right here a pretty high rumor, pretty high chance to be true, pretty much confirmed, I guess. The Olympus EM1 Mark III will be announced in mid-February, probably at the CP Plus show in February. Now this camera, the Olympus EM1 Mark III, they really need to release this camera, because the EM1 Mark II is getting pretty old in the tooth. It's from 2016, I believe. It's a great camera, don't get me wrong, but compared to the Panasonics, it's not really as great. In my opinion, Olympus has better lenses than Panasonic, but Panasonic has the best bodies. The Panasonic G9, for example, I would love to have that camera, but the Olympus lenses definitely are better. If you compare the Olympus lenses with the Panasonic lenses, most of the time, or almost all the time, the Olympus lenses are going to be better in terms of quality. So yeah, they have, for example, that 12-100 f4 Pro lens, which is basically a 24-200 equivalent in full frame. That lens is so awesome. It also does pretty nice for close-ups and macro. That lens alone incentivizes some people to get into the Olympus system. What sucks about this situation about Olympus lenses and Panasonic bodies is that if you attach an Olympus lens in a Panasonic body, you're gonna lose the dual IS, and you're also not gonna have the button functionality. The function button is not gonna work as well. So that sucks. I wish Olympus and Panasonic would cooperate together, so their lenses would work on different bodies and vice versa. But unfortunately, we are in a situation right here where the lenses from Olympus or Panasonic don't work with the vice versa bodies, so that really sucks. But like I was saying, the Olympus EM1 Mark II, it's a very nice camera. Not as good as the G9, of course, in my opinion at least. But it does have some awesome features which the Panasonic likes, like for example, the handheld resolution shooting. I believe that was added via firmware. I'm not really sure. They also have the Olympus EM1X, which is supposed to be a Nikon D series and Canon 1DX series equivalent, but it's not really as great because of course it's a smaller sensor, so it's not going to be as great for the sports shooting. I think they should have targeted that camera to wildlife shooters actually, because one of the benefits of Micro Four Thirds is the crop ability, and being that the sensor is cropped, the lenses can be made smaller while still retaining pretty good range, so that their telephoto lenses can be smaller compared to the full frame equivalents. But of course you're still gonna have to crop in the aperture, I guess. But since they're gonna be used mostly outside, it's not gonna be that bad, I guess. So they should have targeted the EM1X to wildlife shooters, not sports shooters, and that is why most people are not using that camera for sports, and everyone is going to be using Nikon, Sony, and Canon. But yeah, I really hope this camera debuts a new sensor, because the EM1X has the same sensor of the EM1 II, so that really sucks. Micro Four Thirds really needs a new sensor technology. The GH5S is the best for low light, and also the Blackmagics, I guess. But the problem is that they don't have that great of a resolution. They're all in 10 megapixels, so they're not going to be good for photography. They're all going to be good for video. What they could do is maybe add a lower resolution sensor like the GH5S, the 20 megapixel sensor, and then have handheld resolution shooting. So with the click of a button, you can pretty much get like 20 or more megapixels while still retaining the low light capabilities of the 20 megapixels. If they were to do that, it will be really nice, but I don't know what the direction they're going to go into. Also, I don't like the Olympus bodies compared to the Panasonic G9 and the other Panasonic cameras in terms of ergonomics. I don't really like the button layout. I think the button layout on the Olympus cameras suck. Really, the only good thing about the Olympus cameras are the image stabilization. It's the best on the market, period. They have the best image stabilization system. They also have pretty great lenses. And they have the handheld resolution shooting as well, which is pretty good. Another advantage that they have compared to the Panasonics are the fact that they have better video autofocus. They have face detection autofocus, so that's pretty good. But overall, I don't really like Olympus cameras. I mostly like their lenses. I think Olympus should have went full frame a long time ago. They would actually benefit more by going full frame than Panasonic, because like I said, their lenses are pretty good and they have the best image stabilization system. So they could have a pretty good full frame system, but unfortunately they prefer to stay in a relatively smaller package, like they have said. The CEO has already said that they don't plan on going full frame, and they also prefer to have smaller sized cameras, and they just like Sony prefer to have portability over quality and stuff. So yeah, there's that. They also have some lenses coming out this year or next year. They have a Pro 150 to 400 or 450, I'm not really sure, f4.5, that's going to be meant for sports and wildlife. And they also have patented some wide angle lenses, like an 8 to 24 f4, which is pretty good. That's basically a 16 to 48 f8 equivalent. The zoom range is pretty good, the 16 to 48, that's a pretty awesome range. But yeah, Olympus, I don't really care about Olympus. I mostly care about their lenses, but we're gonna see if they debut a new sensor or not. Sony actually has a new sensor. They have a new 40 plus megapixel, I believe, sensor for Micro Four Thirds. I don't know if they're gonna use that sensor. We'll have to wait and see. And Panasonic pretty much doesn't have anything, at least rumored right now, to release. So I'm not gonna go over Panasonic. Now we're gonna go over to Fujifilm. So this is pretty interesting actually. We have right here Fujifilm X-T4, X105, and X-T200 rumor recap. So Fujifilm is going to be releasing 3 cameras this year. The X105, which is pretty much this one right here. It's basically like a compact APS-C camera. So I don't really care about that. It's going to have a fixed lens. I don't really care. The X-T200, which again, I don't really care about it. It's going to be like an XA7, I believe. Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be like an XA7 with their centered viewfinder. It's gonna have the flip out screen, of course. The XT100 is pretty sucky camera. That camera really sucks. The XT100. They could have made a pretty great vlogging camera, but they really compromised on the video features. Like the fact that 4K is only at 15 frames per second, for example. It's pretty bad, that camera. So let's hope the XT200 delivers a little bit better specs. But I'm still not gonna get it because the Fujifilm ecosystem as a whole does not really attract me. Now, what's interesting about these rumors are the fact that they're going to be releasing an XT4. So the XT3 released in 2018, near the end of 2018, like in September, I believe, or October or something like that. So they're going to be releasing it, the successor, only 1.5 years after. So that's pretty interesting. Now, the rumored specs are that it's going to have IBIS. I think this is actually confirmed now. Fujifilm has already said that they want to add IBIS to the XT line. But the problem they have faced is that the IBIS mechanism is too big for the smaller cameras. But apparently the XT4 is going to have IBIS, so they have shrink the size of the IBIS unit down. That's one of the advantages of the XH1. The XH1 as IBIS. It's the only Fuji camera with IBIS, extending medium format, of course. The APS-C cameras, the only one with IBIS is the XH1. But unfortunately, that camera sucks compared to the XT3 in terms of video specs and pretty much autofocus and everything else. The only better thing about it is really the IBIS and the ergonomics, I guess. So it's going to be shipping in March, the XT4. Now there was also a rumor about 6K 60p, which I really doubt it's going to have 6K 60p. I mean, come on, 6K 60p. That's going to still be too hard for the processor to handle. I really doubt it's going to have that. They also said that it's going to have a screen like the S1H, so it's going to pretty much flip out like my Nikon right here. It's going to flip out to vlogging style, and it's also going to tilt up and down. If it does have that, it's going to be pretty good. Now, I really wanted to have an XH2 instead of an XT4 because I prefer the ergonomics and the layout of the XH1 with a bigger grip. Now, what Fujifilm could do with this XT4 camera is maybe they could make the camera a little bit bigger like the XH1. I'm not really sure if they're targeting the Olympics. Actually, they don't have that many lenses for Olympics and sports and wildlife shooters. The only two lenses which are really good for sports that they have is the 200 f2, which is like $6,000, the white lens. And they also have the 50 to 140 f2.8, which is a 70 to 200 equivalent in full frame. Those are really the only two lenses they have that are really good for sports. So if this camera is supposed to be for the Olympics and stuff, they're gonna have to release some more lenses. Unfortunately, Fujifilm lenses are pretty expensive, and Fujifilm is taking forever to release lenses. They are only like releasing 2 to 3 lenses for a year. They really need to up the process of making lenses, and they also need to make them cheaper because they have not opened their mounts, so third-party options are really limited, and you're mostly stuck to buying the expensive lenses. And the problem I have with Fujifilm is that most of their lenses, for example, the 8-16, for example, it's heavier and more expensive, and it's also bigger than the equivalent in full frame, which is the Sony 12-24 f4. So their equivalent lenses to full frame are bigger, heavier, and more expensive than the real ones in full frame. So I always thought that was pretty stupid. How an APS-C lens that is equivalent to full frame is actually bigger and heavier and more expensive than the full frame one. Sure, their lenses are pretty good. I'm not gonna take that away. Their lenses are pretty good. The Fujifilm lenses are pretty good. They have very good, awesome lenses like the 90 f2 and the 16-1.4. But overall, they're very expensive for what they are, and I don't really like the system as a whole. I don't like the ergonomics. Like I said, the XT4 really should get a bigger grip like the XH1. Or what they could do is add an additional accessory with this camera to make the grip bigger, like a battery grip, but even more deep. Because the XH1 is really the only good ergonomic camera, in my opinion, that fits my hands pretty good. I don't like the XT line in terms of economics because the grip is pretty much non-existent, and what that means is that when I'm holding the camera, I'm not really having that sensation which I have with my Nikon, for example. It's pretty bad for shooting with longer lenses, for example. And if you're gonna hold the camera a lot of time, like me, in events, during event shooting, it's not gonna be really that comfortable. So I wish they make pretty much the X-T4 have the same body layout of the X-H1, while still keeping the specs of the X-T3. That would be pretty great. But let's hope Fujifilm learns from their mistake, like the X-H1 failure. So yeah, that's pretty interesting actually. I was not really expecting a new X-T4 so soon, but we'll have to wait and see. Pretty exciting though, it is. And now to conclude, we finally have the most intriguing camera brand in the world right now, which is Sony. For those of you who don't know, I don't really like Sony cameras. Sony has not been innovating recently. Their newest cameras really suck. They are becoming the new Canon. They're compromising the cameras all the time now. Their newest APS-C cameras, the A6000 series, the A6100, the 6400, and the 6600, all suck. They use the same old sensor from 4 years ago. Their specs are pretty bad. They still continue to come out with cameras with 8-bit recording, not even 10-bit, while Canon meanwhile is offering 10-bit externally. Even Canon is offering 10-bit now, and Sony is still stuck on 8-bit. They also don't offer 4K 60, which some people are pretty much want. I don't really care for 4K 60. I just wish they would come up with 10-bit. The best thing about Sony really is the autofocus. They have the best autofocus on the market, period. And the lens lineup, they have pretty great third-party lenses. Because they have opened their mount, there's a lot of lenses for the E mount. A lot of cheap third-party lenses which are pretty good, like from Samyang, for example, Tamron as well, Sigma. There's a lot of third-party lenses coming out for this system, so that's pretty good. But overall, the system itself, it's pretty sucky. The Sony system, the IBIS, for example, sucks. It's the worst IBIS on the market. The ergonomics are acceptable for me. But the button layout could use some change, I think. The menu system sucks, for example, as well. The color science has been improved, but it's still lacking a little bit compared to Fujifilm and some others. Although they sometimes do look pretty good. It depends on the scene, I guess. But overall, the Sony cameras you mostly buy Sony cameras because of the autofocus and the lens lineup, I guess. But aside from that, they're not really that exciting of a system. So we have right here a new one. It's probably going to have a new announcement at CP Plus, Sony. It's going to be most likely expected to be the Sony A7 IV. So this is going to be the successor to the A7 III, which is a pretty popular camera. And I know why, because they sold it pretty cheap at $2,000. But if you really look at it, it's pretty compromised. Like the EVF is compromised. The IBIS sucks. The video specs, of course, suck. So it's a pretty bad camera if you really look into it. People just bought it because it was pretty cheap. Which of course Sony had to do it, because if they had to price it at that price to really sell like hotcakes, pretty much. So yeah, the A7 IV. Now I don't know if this is gonna have a new sensor. I hope it has a new sensor. Ideally it should have a new 36 megapixel sensor, but we're not really sure if it's gonna have that sensor. The video specs, I don't know if they're gonna improve the video specs. The A7R4 really did not improve the video specs. The A9 II did not improve the video specs, so I really doubt this camera is gonna improve the video specs. If the flagship camera still has the same video specs, what can we expect from the basic model? Yes, because this is the basic model pretty much. They are targeting this model for basically starters in full frame. They want you to upgrade to this camera and then get the R model and the A9 model. So yeah, I don't really know if you're gonna add a new sensor. It will be nice to add a new sensor, but we're gonna just have to wait and see. The Sony A7R4 is actually a pretty great camera because of the crop ability for video and stuff. It acts like a 26 megapixels APS-C sensor in crop mode, so that's pretty good, but it's very expensive. I would really love to have that camera. Like I said, the Sony system sucks, but the A7R4 is actually a pretty great camera. It's one of the best cameras on the market so far, and in my opinion, it was the best camera after the Panasonic S1H that released in 2019. So it's a pretty great camera. Even though the video specs on that camera suck, The photography side of things is pretty good. It's got 61 megapixels. Like it's also has a crop mode of 26 megapixels, like I said. And even though it sucks for video in terms of the video specs, because you can crop in so much, it's actually pretty beneficial for video shooters like me, event shooters. It will benefit me a lot actually, because I could get even more range from zoom lenses or even prime lenses. So that's pretty good. It also improves the ergonomics as well. So I'm expecting the A7 IV to have the same improved ergonomics of the A7R4. Now for the EVF, it's probably gonna use the 3 million megapixel, the 3 million EVF from the A7R3. They're most likely not gonna use the 5 megapixel EVF from the A7R4, because of course they're gonna have to compromise on this camera, because they're gonna have to sell it for cheaper. So yeah, the A7 IV. What I'm most excited about this camera is the unlimited recording. It's gonna have unlimited recording, just like the A7R4 and the A9 II and the newest APS-C cameras. Because of the stupid European law being now broken and pretty much obsolete, their newest cameras from Sony now come out with unlimited recording, so that's pretty good. That's the most exciting thing about this camera. Actually, it's gonna be the unlimited recording. Finally, we're gonna have a full-frame Sony camera that's affordable and has unlimited recording, so that's pretty great for people like me who do events and want to film concerts and stuff. Being able to record forever is pretty awesome, and it's most likely not gonna overheat, most likely. Now the IBIS is still gonna continue to suck, of course. There's nothing we can do there, but yeah, this camera, well, while exciting, it's not really gonna be that revolutionary. It's probably just gonna be an incremental update, just like the A9 II was. So yeah, then we also have the A7S III, which is the unicorn camera. Everybody has been waiting for this camera for quite a lot of time now. It's the S line was never meant for video. Actually, most people think the A7S line was always targeted for video, but no, it wasn't. It's mostly targeted for low light shooting, which is why the A7S1 and the A7S2 both have a 12 megapixel sensor, because that allows for better low light performance and lower ISO values. They have better video specs at the other models, because they have lower megapixel count, which translates to easier implementation of video specs. That's why they have better video specs, because the sensor being smaller, or should I say the megapixel count being smaller, is more beneficial for video, which is why the Panasonic GH5S, for example, has better video specs than the normal GH5, because it uses a lower resolution sensor. It's rumored to have 4K 120p. I don't really know how reliable that is, because they still have not implemented 4K 60 in their full frame cameras. So how the hell are they gonna implement 4K 120? I don't really know. It's also rumored to have a ventilation system to cool down the sensor, which I can expect that, just like the Panasonic S1H, because if they're gonna be targeting video shooters and they're gonna be adding up to 4K 120, they're gonna have to cool down the sensor, otherwise the camera is gonna overheat, because we all know that Sony cameras suck in terms of size. They're very compact, so the heat does not dispersate. The heat does not come out like it should. So they're gonna have to add a fan, of course, like the S1H. So I'm pretty much expecting that. So yeah, this are pretty much the two rumored cameras. They also are going to be releasing rumored 6 new E-mount lenses. Most of them are going to be telephoto lenses. They really need some more telephoto lenses if they want to capitalize on sports shooters. They have come out with some recent ones, like the 200 to 600 and the 400, I believe, or the 600. I'm not really sure. They have those lenses, but they really need more lenses if they want to compete with Canon and Nikon on the sports field. They also should release a 20mm f1.8 wide angle, because there's not really a decent one at the moment with good autofocus. There's the Dokina, but that one sucks in autofocus. And Tamron is going to come out with a new one this year, but it's only going to be f2.8. So if Sony would come out with the 20mm f1.8 lens with good autofocus, of course, it's going to have good autofocus, because it's the Sony lens, so it's going to have good autofocus. That will be dope, but we're going to have to wait and see. Their lenses Their newest G Master lenses are pretty good, like the 24-1.4 and the 135-1.8 are pretty good lenses. They're the best on the market in that focal length. But some of their older lenses suck, like the 24-7 G Master. That's the worst G Master lens in the market. The 85-1.4 actually is also not really that good from what I've seen. So yeah, even though their newest lenses rock, their older lenses are not really that good, and they're very expensive as well. Just like Fujifilm, Sony lenses are pretty expensive. But there's a lot of third-party options for them, so at least there's that. Unlike Fujifilm, you can buy a lot of third-party lenses, like the new Sigma 24-70 f2.8, which is half the price of the G Master Sony, and it performs just as good, perhaps even better. So there's that. That's really incentivizing to get into the system. But like I said, I don't really like Sony cameras. As long as they continue to not offer better video specs and continue compromising, I'm not really going to get into the Sony system, unfortunately. I would like to get into the system, don't get me wrong. It's just that they keep on compromising, and it pretty much draws me away from their system. So let's hope the A7 IV ups the video specs a little bit. The A7S III or the A7S IV, whatever they call it, it's gonna come out. They've already said that they're gonna come out with that camera. They want to exceed expectations. We'll have to wait and see. At this point, they really need to come out with better specs than 10-bit. They really need to get out 6K and even 12-bit, because most of the competitors now, like Blackmagic and Panasonic and even Canon now, are coming out with those specs. So they really need to make a better video camera. I know they have their cinema line of cameras, but those ones are very expensive. The most interesting thing is that their newest FX cameras are compromised in some ways. So I'm not really sure if the A7S III is gonna be the beast of a camera that some people think it's gonna be. But we're just gonna have to wait and see, I guess. So that's pretty much Sony. I'm really looking forward to see People's show, because a lot of new cameras are going to be announced. And well, let's hope this year we finally get a pretty good camera, so that I can upgrade my old dinosaur Nikon D5500, because I really am starting to give up on this camera. It's getting me not that great of a results, but unfortunately there's still not an affordable, pretty good camera at the moment. If only Panasonic will add face detection to the G9, I will buy that camera. But since it does not have face detection, and also the sensor, I guess, because the sensor is a little bit small for my liking, I would have preferred APS-C sensor, even though Micro Four Thirds are the best for macro, and I really love to do macro. I really need the low light shooting capability and the high ISO performance, because I do a lot of events with artificial light and low light, so I will benefit more from the bigger sensor. But we're just gonna have to wait and see, I guess. That's pretty much it. Camera's rumored to come out this year, so yeah, guys, we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to wait and see. We're gonna have to wait till February for the CP Plus show. Now CES is going on at the moment. I have been accompanying it. There was some announcements from Nikon, for example, like they showed the D780. They also showed new lenses as well, like the 120 to 300 2.8 and stuff like that. But overall, CES is mostly for smartphones and cars and technology advancements in televisions. CP Plus is going to be mostly about photography and video, so we're going to have to wait till February to really get some more info on these cameras. So yeah, that's it, guys. I'm going to put an end to this video, I guess, this little podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Also, one more thing. I'm sorry about the quality of the audio. My voice is not really that great for video, unfortunately. I have been trying to improvise it, but if you don't understand what I'm saying sometimes, I'm really sorry. But I try to make this really direct and stuff. I try to not drag out a little too much on the topics, and try not to have some cuts here and there. So yeah, this is all natural. No editing was done. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for some more future podcasts on the channel as well. And I'll see you guys very soon in the next event. Meanwhile, you can check my Facebook page where I have started to post, or should I say, I have already posted over 500 photos from the Ibrahim in Porto 2019. At the moment, I'm still editing more photos as well. Then I'm also gonna have to do the cosplay music videos for some of the events I still have left, like Lisboa Games Week and Mosh XL Games World and Anisama. But everything is gonna come pretty soon on the channel, so stay tuned for that. If you like my work and want to support me, subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to visit my social media. And that's it. Unholy Omega, signing out. And see you next time.